Hello, this is the Provoked Prawn, and this is the Acer Predator Triton 500. This is an in-depth review of a thin gaming laptop from Acer. It is an interesting device that's expensive, high-end, and pretty impressive. Now, I've done a compact overview of this device if you want to see a nice short video, but this is a more in-depth insight into the Predator Triton 500 and a discussion as to why it might be worth purchasing, why it's nifty, what I like about it, and the downsides of the potential, which I'll be happy to report there aren't that many. Apart from the fact that it's a real fingerprint magnet, as you can see when I got it out of the box. Now I do have hot hands, I'm quite warm-blooded, but it did immediately have fingerprints all over it. It is worth noting though that this is not a brand new device. I wasn't the first person to unbox it, so it already came with someone else's fingerprints on it. It is a review device that was sent by their PR team for me to review, so it's been in someone else's hands previously, so bear that in mind. Now this is a ultra thin, lightweight and compact gaming laptop. This features a 15.6 inch 1080p IPS panel that's capable of 144 Hz. It comes with a PCIe NVMe SSD drive, which means it boots up nice and quick. Now this model has a 512GB SSD drive. It comes with a Intel Core i7-9750 processor, 16GB of RAM, and an RTX 2060 GPU. That'll cost you around $2,000. Or £2,000, depending on where you're from in the world. Highlights though, you'll note here, it includes an Ethernet port, HDMI output, and a DisplayPort Mini. I really like seeing an Ethernet port on a modern gaming laptop. It's pretty rare. You can see it here compared with a chunkier Asus laptop that I've had for a while, probably about 3 years old. So it's quite a bit of a chunk, but that's a 17 inch, so it's a bit bigger. This is a 15 inch, obviously, 15.6 inch screen, compact, but it's got a really nice design to it. It immediately strikes as a much nicer looking design than the previous Acer laptops that I've seen. If you saw my previous review of a gaming laptop from them, where I said it immediately felt cheap, this is quite the opposite. It doesn't feel cheap. It's got some real nice design accents to it, really cool hinge closing, some nice venting on the rear and sides, a really nicely designed, interesting membrane-style keyboard that you'll see in a bit. And it doesn't seem like they've skimped on the design at all as well. The inclusion of multiple USB ports, DisplayPort Mini, HDMI connections, Ethernet port, that's all fantastic. It has this membrane-style keyboard with these white accents around the keys, and which is surprisingly comfortable and nice to use. Here you can see an example of me using that. Now if you want to hear that goodness, I'm going to do an ASMR style unboxing so you get to see that. Please note that although it looks like I type with one finger, I'm actually trying to get my fingers out of the way so you can see the keyboard as well as hear it. So don't bother criticising me in the comments for my awful typing. I regularly get that sort of comment. And you'll note if you're looking at the keyboard while I'm doing this, there are media keys. There's no numpad on the right hand side, but there are media keys down the right hand side for media playback, volume control. You can also control the brightness from the directional buttons. You'll note the turbo button on the top left. Now those media keys are a bit of a nag because the volume buttons, I often found I was accidentally mashing those when pressing enter during the day for typing, which I found a bit frustrating. You do also have to press the function key if you want to play, pause, skip and rewind. There's a Predator Sense button at the top there which automatically launches the software, but the delete key is in a funny position. I find like it's a bit too near the power button for my liking. There's a serious danger of accidentally pressing that. However, overall, this is a really nice looking gaming laptop. The keyboard is really nice and cool. The design accents of it are really nice. As you can see here, it gives the highlights to them. It features a thin form factor, 81.3% screen to body ratio, which means you get relatively thin bezels and a pretty decent sized screen. Yeah, as I said, it's a 15.6 inch 144 Hz panel. It looks pretty good from most angles, and it does give some pretty good visuals in game. You'll see a bit more of that later on, and it actually works out quite nicely outside as well. Here you can see another close-up of the keys. You'll note there's a blue accent around the directional buttons and also the WASD keys. But the lighting itself actually is quite understated, the backlighting. It's set into 3 zones, which is adjustable within the Predator Sense software, and I'll show you in a bit. And you can adjust that in all the usual manners to get different designs going on. As I said, it also has this DisplayPort mini connection, which means you can plug it in and use it with VR headset. I'll show you a bit later using the Oculus Rift S with this gaming laptop. Now, happy to report that it works really well doing that, which is fantastic. So if you want to do VR and you want to be portable with it, then this is a brilliant choice. Packs a pretty powerful specification, so it can run most games on Ultra, and I've got some examples of that as well a bit later on. A really close-up look at the keyboard and the general design. You get a real feel of quality with this laptop, and I think it is one of the nicer looking laptops that I have tried. Not the nicest looking. I'm a big fan of the Asus Zephyrus lineup. They've got some really nice gaming laptops, really nice looking. So if you want a premium gaming laptop, and you are paying a premium for this Acer, but having said that, it is a very good design, and the membrane style keyboard is also very comfortable and easy to use, and the keys are quite satisfying, and I quite like that white accent around the outside of it. And the layout is actually really comfortable. When I first got out of the box, I thought I was going to have problems with the media keys. I was right. I was worried about that delete key. It was actually not too bad. But generally, for typing and everyday use and for gaming, it's pretty good. As I said, the WASD keys, you can see a close-up here of what they look like. And then the turbo button. Now, the turbo button is a highlight to the system. Basically, one press and you get overclocking. Now, that only works when the laptop is plugged in and that you've got enough juice, but that basically gives you more power and sets the fans to a higher speed to keep the laptop cool and give you more juice for a better performance. You can see here the design accents on the rear fans help you keep cool and keep the laptop running at optimal performance. Now, a view of the turbo button again, you can see and hear what happens when you press that, and you can press it on and off. It's quite easy to do that. But in the Predator Sense software, you can then adjust the fan speed to your liking as well, and I'll show you that in a little bit. And you can basically switch between auto, max, and then custom for all these options. So you can adjust the fans, set them a bit higher if you need to get a bit more performance out of it. And you can also press the cool boost to get an even more boost out of it and get them running fast. Now, they are quite loud, as you'd expect when running on maximum. But I'm actually happy to report that the speakers in this laptop are good enough to overpower the noise from the fans, because that is a bit of a concern when you've got really noisy fans. Sometimes the speakers just get drowned out, or the microphone on the laptop picks up a lot of that hiss. But actually the microphone on this is really good as well. It does a good job of cancelling out that noise and not transmitting it. I used it while playing with friends, and they noted that the mic actually sounded pretty decent and didn't have any issues with hearing the fans constantly. And obviously, because you've got the membrane keyboard as well, you've not got a mashing of keys going through there either. So that's pretty sweet. Now, in the Predator Sense software, you can also choose to change the GPU overclocking. You can set that in there and tweak between different settings. You get access to the fan control. You can monitor the performance and temperatures of the relevant parts, and you can also adjust the lighting. Now, the lighting, as I said, is split into 3 different zones, and you can choose custom lighting, a variety of different settings there, which I will show you, where it's fairly basic. Now, GameSync is interesting, but I also want to show you this App Center. Now, in the App Center, you can access various other apps, one of which includes the Waves maxxAudio software. Now, this is used for audio purposes, obviously, but basically it allows you to adjust various settings in there, mostly aimed at putting a headset in. So if you're plugging a headset in, which, let's face it, you probably will want to because it blocks out a lot of the fan noise, once you do that, you can then activate this software that then opens up the camera and tracks your head movement and adjusts the virtual surround sound accordingly. So that actually changes the way the audio works. I actually did this when I first plugged it in. I've noticed the camera was on and I was confused as to why, and then I worked it out. And you can play around with that, and it's quite interesting. Here you can see the lighting. You can adjust that in the different zones. As I said, it's quite customizable. Now, you can use the Triton 500 on your lap, It does get a bit hot after a while though, the underside gets quite hot. It does need to be plugged in as well to power that GPU, otherwise you just get a serious drop in frame rates. But the design means you get a nice screen, a really nice, you can see it comes across quite nicely here. The visuals on Shadow of the Tomb Raider were great, and as they were there on Battlefield as well. The screen itself is just really responsive, really good. In the description I will include links to the benchmarks I did with 3D Mark, but generally speaking you get around 60 frames and upwards on Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and the same for Battlefield, and that's on all the high settings with the ray tracing turned on as well. Now, because this is a compact and lightweight laptop, it means you can take it with you and use it outside the house. So just to show that I do occasionally go out, here's some pictures of it by our local lake. And actually the brightness on the screen here is also quite easy to demonstrate in a bit of footage in a minute. You can see that you can still see the screen quite well, even in broad daylight. Speakers are also decent enough to use outside as well, although you wouldn't necessarily be able to game on it unless you were doing casual gaming. Now, the battery life lasts for around 3 hours with Netflix streaming and standard use, which isn't a great deal, but it's to be expected with a compact and lightweight laptop. As I said, it works with virtual reality, so you can see some action with me using it with the Oculus Rift S. And that means that you can plug that headset in and use it wherever, because it doesn't have any base stations. I've done a review of that separately if you're interested. But because of the specification of this laptop, even on the basic specification, you'll be able to run pretty much any VR headset on it. So if you're thinking about doing VR and you want a laptop that's capable of it, then this one will do. During the gaming sessions, I found it to be a really responsive and high quality laptop. Actually, it performed really well. Didn't have any issues with lag. Now, as I said, it has an Ethernet port, but it also has a killer network Wi-Fi card built into it, which means that you get a solid Wi-Fi connection. I actually found the connection was really good on this all over the house. So there's no problems with the Wi-Fi connection. It didn't drop out, or I didn't have any lag or problems with gaming at all. Apart from when I was pushing it really hard with ray tracing in Battlefield. But I find that ray tracing does that on most desktops as well as laptops anyway. It's quite a taxing thing to turn ray tracing on and push it to its limit. But it also works nicely with other games. As you can see, I'm playing a bit of Dirt Rally, Super Hot, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Battlefield, various VR games, and then benchmarking with 3D Mark as well. And it's got good performance out of it across the board. Not blisteringly good frames per second, I'll be honest. Somewhere between 60 and 90. But I do like to run with everything maxed out, and it did look really good. And with that 144Hz screen, it just looks fantastic as well. It is surprisingly a good size as well, considering it's only 15.6 inch. It does feel bigger. And the design of the keyboard and the layout of the laptop itself is also really nice. Now, obviously using the trackpad for gaming is a bit of a no-no. But generally I found that to be quite a precise little trackpad. It was quite comfortable to use for general use, but plugging in a gaming mouse is pretty essential. And you can obviously turn that trackpad off, as you'd be able to expect from a system like this. And as I said, because it has an RTX GPU in it, it means you can turn on DLSS and ray tracing in the games that support it. And that includes Battlefield, Shadow of the Tomb Raider and other games. Obviously that reduces the frames per second that you get and doesn't give you as smooth an experience, but it does give some pretty stunning visuals. Being able to kick those fans up to maximum obviously gives you a bit of an extra boost. And if you put the overclocking on, you can also get a pretty tasty looking gaming session. You're going to see a bit of footage from Battlefield to get an idea of what that looks like. As I said, you can obviously turn the fans up to get a better performance, but the speakers do a really good job. I found the quality of the sound was really good, both for gaming and for other things. been using it for streaming Netflix and listening to music and things like that, and found it was really good across the board, basically. It's very hard to pick faults with this laptop. As I said, the downsides to it probably are how hot it gets. So gaming on your lap, it just gets really hot, and especially in the summer, that's going to be a bit of a problem. Gaming on desktop is not too bad. The fans do get noisy, obviously, especially if you're turning them up, but they're not the noisiest I've seen. And considering it is quite a thin laptop, usually the ultra thin laptops tend to get really hot and really noisy. This one is not too bad, and the speakers more than counter it. And if you plug in a headset, you probably wouldn't notice it as much either, depending on what you've got. I also like that they've not skimped on the ports. Often you'll see thin gaming laptops in these compact designs skimping on ports. So you wouldn't have an Ethernet port. You might only have a couple of USB ports. You might only have an HDMI out. You wouldn't have all these extra connections, and this one just has it all. You do, however, obviously only have the compact keyboard layout, which could be a disappointment for some, but it's a minor quirk. So here you can see the Predator Sense software in a bit more depth. Here you can access a variety of settings. You can do GPU overclocking and tweaking to the lighting profile. You can also set up a multitude of other things. You'll note in the top corner on the right there's actually access to a smartphone app as well, so you can do that. You can set the lighting in 3 different zones across the keyboard, and you can change different colours and different lightings for that. There are various lighting effects, breathing, twinkling, all those wave functionalities that you'd expect, and you can set different speeds and different colours. Now, the lighting on the keys is pretty understated. If you're really into your RGB backlighting on your keyboard on your gaming laptop, you'd probably be disappointed in this, and you might not want it. You might be put off by that, but it's not really a big deal for most people, and for me it certainly isn't. And I think that small point, that the RGB lighting isn't amazing, is a minor niggle for a laptop that's generally pretty decent. Now, it is a shame that it's only based on zones and you can't do per key illumination, but you do have those accents around the WASD keys and the directional keys, which means you do get that visibility. I really like the ability to be able to sort of customize your keyboard and set the WASD keys to be a different color so you can see them when you're gaming at night easily. But the fact that they stand out anyway kind of counters that, so you don't need to worry. You can access overclocking settings, as I said. You can change that as well, and you can manually tweak the fan control as well, so you can set it to auto, max, or custom, and you can see a close-up of that here. And you can turn on cool boost, which is increasing the maximum fan speed to make it even faster for heavy use, to give you that extra performance boost. Here you can see what happens if you press the turbo button. You also get the turbo on to tell you that it happens, like you wouldn't know, because the fans go from pretty quiet to really loud. And that's worth noting, actually, that an auto use, standard browsing, or whatever other use you're using, is really quite a quiet laptop. And because it's relatively understated and it's not too leery with the design, you could probably take it to the office or to school or whatever with you as well, and not have people immediately go, oh, it's a gaming laptop, oh, it must have cost you loads, oh, look at all the stupid lighting on it, or whatever else, giving you grief for a laptop that's actually really good and performs really well when you need it to. And it's really good to use during the day. I've been using it during the day for work and then at night for gaming as well, and it's comfortable to use throughout the day. A highlight to it is certainly this GameSync. The software is a real highlight to this laptop, but the GameSync allows you to set options for specific games to launch when you launch the game automatically, so you don't need to worry about tweaking the settings, so you can set it up exactly as you want to. In this case, you're using Battlefield 5. You can choose your own lighting profile, but you can also set the GPU overclocking, the fan controls, and the Acer True Harmony to gaming specific settings, in this case FPS, and then that will launch every time you launch Battlefield, and it will revert to the standard settings when you shut the game down. And that's a really nice way of being able to do it, so you can customize it. Obviously you've got the option to press the turbo button, but if you wanted a bit more customization options, then you've got it. As I said, the experience playing Battlefield with those settings maxed out is actually pretty impressive as well. It gives you some really nice visuals and it works quite smoothly. There is a slight judder I found with ray tracing and everything turned all the way up to maximum, but I've seen that before on other gaming laptops, and it's not necessarily a criticism of the laptop itself, but the high-end processing of those visuals, which is pretty common. It does look good from any angle though, and the screen is fairly bezel free. Here you can see a close-up of the keys and the lighting. This is taken at night to give you an idea of what the lighting looks like. But you can see even when it's dark, it's not that bright. So again, it's fairly understated design to it, which is, not necessarily a bad thing. It's all a personal preference, obviously. Now, I'll add some links in the description to the various specifications and where to purchase this laptop from if you're interested, and also to the 3D Mark tests I did. But generally speaking, this has been a really good experience. I'm really going to be sad actually to have to send this back because it is a review unit that's going to need to go back. I thoroughly enjoyed using it, and it is one of my favourite Acer laptops that I've seen so far. It's nice looking, it's lightweight, it's compact, and it's good fun to use. Hope you enjoyed this video enough to subscribe, like, and drop me a comment. If you have any questions, please let me know, or any tips on what you'd like to see in future if I've missed anything, please feel free to drop me a message. Thanks for watching. This has been the Provoked Prawn signing out.